Hi, kids. For our next article that we're going to be reading, it's entitled Chicago Ain't No Sunday School, and it's about the growth of what became known as the Chicago Outfit, which was the mafia in Chicago. In New York, it's referred to as the mafia. In Chicago, it's referred to as the Outfit. A little less well known, but it's certainly the what the outfit did is not less well known. Chicago became world famous for the organized crime that was in the city in the 1920s and even after that. So this is the growth of the modern version of the outfit. Okay, so please follow along while I read. Chicago ain't no Sunday school. The Outfit. Chicago has always had more than its share of crime. The city grew very quickly in the 1800s, and its settlers tended to be rough, tough people who were fine with occasionally doing something illegal. With work at places like the Chicago Stockyards so unpleasant, workers looked forward to the opportunity to get drunk or gamble on their free time. The politicians and cops were willing to look the other way if the bribe was good enough and nobody got hurt too badly. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, a stretch of territory on the near south side called the Levee developed. It was a world-famous location of gambling clubs, saloons, and brothels, which are houses of prostitution, only a couple of miles from the site of the Columbian Exposition. Visitors to Chicago in 1893 made it to the White City, but some of them made sure they also got to the Levee. The Columbian Exposition was open for a year and then closed. The Levee stayed open all the time and had never had any trouble attracting customers. As World War I came to an end, the biggest operator in the Levee was a man named Big Jim Colosimo. His club, known as Colosimo's Cafe, was the classiest place by far in the Levee. Respectable citizens came from all over to gamble, drink, and see the world-famous bands and singers who performed at Colosimo's. They may have been afraid to go to other Levee spots like the Bucket of Blood Saloon with good reason, but they enjoyed their time at ritzy Colosimo's without fear of being robbed, drugged, or killed. Big Jim Colosimo was so successful that he became as rich as any of the city's respectable businessmen, such as Marshall Field and Potter Palmer, who also visited Colosimo's when they felt like it. Colosimo was also known as Diamond Jim because he had diamond rings, diamond tie pins, diamond lapel pins, and diamond belt buckles accessorizing his outfits. He even carried loose diamonds in his pocket because he liked the way they felt in his hand. When Colosimo started to get threats from kidnappers in the Levee, he called a friend, New York gangster Frankie Yale, for help. Yale sent his assistant, John Torrio, to Chicago to deal with it around 1909. And there you see a picture of Big Jim on the left, and then John Torrio in the middle, and then on the right is Frankie Yale from New York. Torrio was also from New York, came to Chicago, and kind of in Chicago is where he became much more well known. Torrio did not look or act like a typical thug. In fact, he preferred to settle disagreements without violence if possible. That said, Torrio was perfectly capable of solving problems the hard way if necessary. Pretty quickly, the kidnapping problem went away, and so did the kidnappers for Colosimo, and Torrio began taking over the day-to-day operations of Colosimo's business. By the time World War I ended in 1918, Colosimo was not really interested in handling his business affairs anymore, and he was more than happy to let Torrio take care of them. He preferred to let Torrio do the paperwork while he played the role of Diamond Jim at Colosimo's Cafe every night. He also fell in love with a singer at his club named Dale Winter. He divorced his first wife and planned to marry her. None of that bothered Torrio. However, when Colosimo did not really want to get involved in bootlegging after the 18th Amendment passed, things changed. And bootlegging liquor in Chicago was going to make his organization millions of dollars, and Torrio loved to make money. He wanted to help make it for Big Jim, but if Colosimo was not willing to go along, then changes would have to be made. Around that time, another man made his way to Chicago from Frankie Yale's organization in New York and very quickly became Torrio's most trusted assistant. He was fleeing a couple of possible murder charges in New York, and the cuts on his face from a knife fight were healing him into some nasty scars. There is a picture of a man named Alphonse Capone, later known as Al Capone. Alphonse Capone joined the Colosso Torrio organization in 1919 at the age of 20. Ironically, he turned 21 on the day that Prohibition went into effect. He was destined to become the most famous criminal in American history. Flowers and Little Help. When Big Jim Colosimo returned from his honeymoon in May 1920, Torrio tried one more time to convince him to give the okay to get involved in bootlegging. Colosimo refused. He wanted to relax and enjoy the rest of his life. The rest of that life would only be a few days once Frankie Yale returned to town and paid Colosimo a visit. Colosimo's murder cleared the way for Torrio to use the organization he built to control bootlegging all over the South Side. There were groups all over the city involved in bootlegging. One of the most aggressive gangs was not a part of the Torrio gang, but was allied with them. This was the Jenna gang on Chicago's North Side. The Jennas were based in the Little Sicily area of the Near North neighborhood. The Jennas were so rough that their area was known as Little Hell. Right next to their crime-ridden kingdom, though, was the Gold Coast, Old Town, and Lincoln Park, which were some of the nicest neighborhoods and richest bootlegging territory in Chicago. Dean O'Banion ruled that area. His mostly Irish gang supplied top-shelf booze to the rich customers in his territory. He did not appreciate the Jennas moving in with their homemade rot gut, giving his alcohol a bad name. Knowing that the Jennas were friends with Torrio and Capone, O'Banion began hijacking Torrio bootlegging trucks, leading to a breakdown in the usually peaceful relations between O'Banion's Northsiders and the Torrio Capone Southsiders. Once again, Frankie Yale came to Chicago. He and some associates visited O'Banion at his headquarters at Schofield's Flower Shop on State Street, just across from Holy Name Cathedral. O'Banion liked working in the flower shop, creating floral arrangements to relieve stress. He was used to seeing friendly and unfriendly gangsters peacefully come into the store. Whenever a gangster was killed in Chicago, the flowers for the funeral were usually ordered from Schofield's. And there you see a picture of Dean O'Banion on the left, as well as Schofield's Flower Shop on State Street. This is after O'Banion's murder. The handshake murder. When Frankie Yale entered Schofield's Flower Shop along with John Scalise and Albert Anselmi, Dean O'Banion probably should have been suspicious. Yale was generally unknown in Chicago, even though he already killed Colosimo. But Scalise and Anselmi were deservedly nicknamed the Murder Twins for their work killing for O'Banion's main enemies, the Jennas. Recently, a very famous Italian-American in Chicago named Mike Merlo, president of the Unione Siciliana, an Italian organization in the city, died of cancer. Knowing that, the idea of some Sicilian gangsters who were friends with Merlo entering Schofield's made sense. O'Banion greeted the visitors warmly, and they returned the smiles and began talking about a floral arrangement for Merlo's funeral. Once the business had been completed, O'Banion rang up their purchase. One of the visitors extended his hand to shake O'Banion's, and O'Banion returned the shake. With his right hand clasped in the handshake, he could not reach his gun beneath his jacket. The other two men shot O'Banion repeatedly in the lobby of Schofield's Flower Shop and fled the scene. With O'Banion's death, the fragile peace that more or less existed through the first years of Prohibition was shattered. Another Northsider, Jaime Weiss, became leader of the O'Banion gang. Unlike O'Banion, Weiss did not pass the time making floral arrangements. He wanted revenge. The Chicago beer wars were about to begin. And on the right there, you see a picture of Jaime Weiss. On the left is the newspaper from the day O'Banion died. Jaime Weiss is a guy that's not very well known these days, but was supposedly the only gangster that Al Capone was ever afraid of. So we'll learn about him in the next article.